Ekonene. So jana ilikuwa ni funeral ya Raila and a few people ended up giving their final eulogies, and the first one nataka to check in here Ruto, because I feel like Ruto said a lot without saying anything, and yes, because nearly find the speech itself to be a little bit strange, and the reason why I'm talking about that is wacha tumsikize.
I can now reveal here today that immediately after the election, a few months, and there are witnesses sitting in our midst today, I looked for Baba. A few months after the election, nikamwambia mheshimiwa, tukaketi chini na yeye, nikamwambia mheshimiwa Prime Minister, wewe ni mwalimu wangu. Kwa umri mimi natoshana kuwa kijana wako. Kwa mapenzi ya Mungu mimi ndio rais wa Kenya. Nikamweleza mheshimiwa Raila, kwa hii serikali mimi nataka nikupatie mambo machache.
So yeah, hapa nilifaindikiwa nini, because hii mambo machache ila alimwambia, because one of the things like if in 2022 you are not a Ruto supporter, like one of the things that you found Ruto saying is, Ruto alikuwa anasema I'll never call this guy, I'll never sit down with this guy, nini mimi si Uhuru. So for him to confess this, I found that to be najua like he swallowed his pride to a certain level. But if this is what he actually told Raila hiyo time, then ilikuwa interesting. Wacha tusikiele kitu anasema alimwambia.
Nikamwambia kwanza, kama utasimama 2027 kuwania urais, ama kama utaunga mkono mtu mwingine, mimi hainijalishi. Mimi ninataka kama kijana wako niliyejifunza siasa chini yako, nataka nikushughulikie, kwa sababu wewe you have made a huge sacrifice for our nation.
And hapa ndio like hii huge sacrifice, it's one of those things that I think I did a video before, na kwa hiyo video niko nasema that sacrifice is what ended up making a lot of people judge Raila harshly. Najua it's the one sacrifice that we never talk about, because it's the one sacrifice that wale, yani the people who are true to themselves, the people who, and it's basically every Kenyan, when you look in the mirror and you're mature enough, you know the sacrifice we're talking about, and this sacrifice is the one that made him the most hated. Nacheki, like it's so interesting that nilikuwa nasoma kuna msali andika like Cambridge Analytica, and the campaign that they led in 2013 ended up making Raila to be hated by people to a certain level that even saa hizi vile amededi they still hate him, and it was just from that campaign that happened your time. So what sacrifice are we talking about? But wacha tuendelee.
You have made a huge contribution to our nation, and I told Baba, I want, as a person who has learned in your political school of politics, I know you have made a huge contribution to Kenya. I know you have paid a huge personal sacrifice.
Personal sacrifice, because damn, I don't know if what happens with death, but when someone dies, normally we either clean up their past ama we give them their flowers, and that's why unasikia wasi wakiambiwa like give someone their flowers when they're still alive. So when I listen to this, I think about it, like try and imagine, and I said this about Ruto, that the presidency is a privilege that only a few of us will ever be able to get, and it's just that one shot that you get as a president. Like I was the president of Kenya, very few of us will ever be able to say that, and this guy won it and he had to give it away, and the win was so clear and he had to give it away, and some of his supporters never forgave him. Ruto himself never forgave him for that, and that's why they had the fallout, because ilikuwa like utaachaje hiki kitu jo, Buddha. That's why ukiangalia elections ya 2022, one of the things that Ruto used to say, like Ruto alikuwa anaulizwa like, na ukishinda alafu uibiwe, and Ruto said something very strange. Usema mimi na kama mtu naweza ibiwa kura. So nikisikiza hii speech niko nakumbuka hiyo design, alafu inafanya najiuliza like what would make a man sacrifice such a thing? People will say peace, but this is the only situation where the victim is blamed. Why do you blame the victim? Like, because as we head into the 2027 elections, which is going to be exactly 20 years since 2007, this is one of my greatest fears, that if we get there and Ruto loses, what will Ruto do? Will Ruto try to pull that 2007 shit and pull some Tarakaniti? Ama will he be like, you know what, I saw what happened in 2007 and it's not worth it? Because power is sweet. Power is really sweet. But is it worth? Because I feel like in 2007, and this is something Musemaga will go down in Kibaki's legacy. Every time that someone says Kibaki is the greatest president, I always say no. And the reason why I say no is we cannot only measure development through we cannot only measure goodness of a president through development. Because in 2002, Kibaki won the presidency and Kenya was very united. By 2005, Kenya was super divided. By 2007, Kibaki, who'd won through democracy in 2002, killed democracy in 2007. And since then, every election has been looked at as funny. Kama juzi nikisikiza Linus Kaikai akisema that according to him, the only true election we've had was 2002. Me of course musemaga 2002 and the referendum ya 2005. And of course, 2010, because rigging referendum 2010 was tricky. The others have always had some questionable element to it. It takes too long. It takes what. But yes, it was interesting to hear this dude say this. And on that, Nini, and this is the reason why, if you are to ask me, because kumekuwa the whole debate of why did Raila get a state funeral. And I think for someone like this, he knows that if everything in Kenya had played out the way it's supposed to play out and it was a just society, then automatically he'd have gotten the state funeral. Why? Because he'd have been the fourth? Alikuwa nafaa kuwa the fourth president, yes. But yes, let's continue.
Family sacrifice, community sacrifice. I want to right the wrongs that have been done to you in our nation.
Yes, I want to right the wrongs that have been done to you in our nation. And I think for Ruto, like one of the ways of righting the wrongs ilikuwa hiyo the state funeral. Najua, like this is something that you deserved. We are going to give it to you. I know we've given it to other people, because nasikia a state funeral was given to Lucy Kibaki, which I'm like, what the fuck was that about? But yeah, so this was a very, I think you term nimeitumia mara mobi kikam to stories za Raila, especially kikam to Ruto, but it was a very multi-layered speech. Yes, it had a lot of stuff that you could just get from that. Like, what was this about? Acha tuendelee.
And we agreed with the former Prime Minister, and I told him without condition, I will do whatever he wanted me to do, especially to make sure that the sacrifices he had made for our nation, the contribution that he had made for our nation, we right any wrong that may have happened.
Damn. Said it twice. We right any wrong that may have happened. And ikikam to his story, as I keep saying, like sometimes it takes someone passing, because I'd also be honest and say, like in his final days, I was one of Raila's biggest critics. And also in 2007, I never understood why he took the deal. And I've been in both extremes. So I've been in the extremes of people who believed in the Bob Marley mantra of total destruction, the only solution. I've been in that. I don't know if in 2007 I was under that spell, because I think I'd just gotten my radio gig, as in I was the one running Ghetto Radio. So I think I was in a comfortable financial position. So would I have wanted total destruction? Not really. but I understand the situation where people are ready for total destruction, the only solution. In 2002, when we used to threaten Moi that if you don't get out of power, we are going to force you out. Your time, I was ready for total destruction, the only solution. So you look at that and you're like, damn, because sometimes it takes someone from the outside to make you see something that you'd not seen. And I think this is something that niliona from Jimani. So Jimani alikuwa ameandika, when I first came to Kenya in 2007, I was enthralled by the election season. After witnessing the apathy of UK politics, Kenyan politics reminded me of Jamaican politics. The media at the time painted Raila as the villain, and I believed them, briefly. I didn't know better, nor was I familiar with the Kenyan media as I would become. My love for Kenya began then. It also coincided with my growing love and tacit support for Raila. I remember being on the radio as listeners would try to guess my political allegiances. I don't have a vote, so my opinion is irrelevant, was always my defense. Raila was an enigma, and the more I researched, the more I realized he was everything you've heard today, and nothing like the monster he was painted to be. On several occasions, as Kenyan teetered on the brink, he chose dialogue over disaster. Love him or hate him, he had the power to destroy Kenya, but he never once used it. Weaker men would have. He worked with those who demonized him for the sake of a better nation. Now, there is no more Raila to blame. Hata before tuangalia hapo, I found this sentence to be very powerful. Hii sentence ya ilikuwa nini? Love him or hate him, he had the power to destroy Kenya, but never once used it. And I think one of the things tuliona last week, when his body was being brought, and there was a literal Occupy JKIA, ilituonyesha the difference between the love that he had and the power that he had, and the power that we ourselves time tulikuwa leaderless tuko nafikiria we have. It takes a certain level to have people go that wild. Unajua, be like iko nene, unajua. And this is something that you also saw ile time ilifika Kasarani, ukapata msana shoot kwa crowd. Ilikuwa, I think for Raila supporters, they used to know that every time they left the house, there was no guarantee they were coming back home. Unajua. And the difference was that they also knew that no one would care. And this is the reason why when you see a lot of people be like, no deaths used to happen before Ruto's presidency, it's because they never knew that for Raila supporters, kulikuwaga like a lot of time you'd read in the news, who am dead, because it would be like, if you leave the house, there was no guarantee you are coming back. And the state, and I guess through your Cambridge Analytica, they'd created this image, and a lot of people used to, unajua, like nitangwa nini swallow it, ama ni walikuwa yani walikuwa na believe the fact that the opposition causes violence, protesters cause violence. This was a narrative that stayed for very long hapa Kenya, that opposition don't cause violence, and it's always been the government. It's always been the government that has the monopoly of violence. And I think, of course, the Gen Z protests in 2024 was a very big awakening to a lot of Kenyans, and I think that also might have played a role in some people now in his death realizing that it's always been the government, it's never been the protesters. So then ane kaendeleaje jo, anaitwa Jimani akaendelea akasema, now there is no more Raila to blame. Those who built their careers on his back will have to find new ways to be relevant. More importantly, you, the Kenyan voter, now have a bigger task. From this day on, you must find the fighter within. You can no longer delegate your responsibility to insist on change to Raila. And I think this, I shared that message that I sent Winnie Odinga, and for the message, it was, I think, was it early this year ama late last year, I can't remember, but nakumbuka nikizusha na yeye nikimwambia like, budako hata support aje hii story ya internet kuwa controlled. And of course that was me pushing my blame, because we'd known this one guy and we'd put all these things that it was very interesting. Like, hindsight is a motherfucker. So it was very interesting to see that we used to expect him to fight for us even when it was our fault. Nacheki kama it was very interesting to see like hizo in his last days wase walivotia Ruto saying that he betrayed them, and you're like, no one betrayed you. And yeah, no one betrayed you, because one of the things I think also there's another speech pia nilicheki ya Kalonzo, and Kalonzo alikuwa anasema that alibonga na Raila during the height of the Gen Z protests, and that he Ruto had been scared by the protesters so much that they were afraid that Ruto might actually hand over power to the military. And when I hear that, of course, I'm not a child, so personally I'll never support military rule, because I know it does not come with what people expect it comes with. So I was like, yeah, if that handshake saved us from military rule, I'll always support it. Najua kuna rais that go, oh, Murph, nini. I don't believe, as I keep saying, and I've said this a million times, I've heard Kibaki must go, I've heard Uhuru must go, and I'm hearing Ruto must go. During all these times, I've never and will never support military rule. Why? A civilian, we can deal with a civilian, ajua, and that's the reason why we are dealing with Ruto, and Ruto is starting to panic. Why? Because it's civilian rule. Military rule, there's nothing to deal with. Tunapigwa tu risasi na story inaishia hapo, na hiyo risasi itakuja, alafu it's going to come with a lot of freedoms that msika mimi mujuaga. If military rule starts today, the next day mi na Thug Rock tunapatana and we hug each other and we are like, we'll be lovers forever. Why? Because internet would be shut down, freedom of expression would be shut down, like everything that we take for granted, all those two TikTok challenges that unafanya unashake haga yako, that wouldn't be able to happen under military rule. So yes, but nikimalizia Jimani akaendelea akasema, I saw a post on X, I guess deep down I still loved Baba. That's where people are finding themselves. The ones who loved him didn't know how much, and the ones who thought they hated him realized they had no reason to. Even though I'm thousands of miles away, this one I've felt to my core. We selfishly wanted Baba here forever as the conscience of Kenyan politics. Baba has rested, and now the buck stops with us. There are no excuses. And Ipatia, we wanted him to live forever. It's interesting because if I go back to Wednesday, I always wake up late. So I remember waking up late, halafu nikona Raila Odinga is dead. And that's the time that I remember when I did the reaction videos, like, this guy was larger than life. That even me as a younger person than him, and as even someone who'd said that some of the decisions that he makes will affect us longer than him, I didn't realize, like, Raila nilikuwa nimsay, according to me, was supposed to live to at least 100. Ajua, that's the sort of person that he was. He was like, ajua, larger than life. And yeah, so I found this to Nini to be super powerful, this dedication from Jimani, especially being from an outsider, and the outsider being able to see that, yes, we had this one person. And now, yeah, back to Ruto. And Ruto talking about reaching out and trying to right the wrongs. And that, Nini, nashindwa kuiput into words, because I felt like this was such a good way to remember Raila, najua, by at least telling the truth and talking about how the country had wronged him. And yeah, I don't think there was a better way to do it. And of course, a lot of people nowadays never see anything good from Umse, but I felt like that was the right way to do it. But now nikimalizia story, I think one of the things that also Ruto alienda pakibonga juu yake ni the last 1.5 months of Raila. And this also showed you one thing, that this guy was so larger than life that he was not even allowed to be sick. Ajua. Okay, wacha tusikie. And by allowed, I'm putting allowed in quotes.
We consulted with him very often. But the last 1.5 months were very difficult times, because every time I met Baba, his voice was hoarse, and he kept on telling me that I am weak because I am taking some drugs.
Hii part ilinibamba. Hii part ya drugs ilinibamba because I think ni kitu wife aliniambia that apparently in other countries they just call it medicine, they don't call it drugs. So kuna time alikuwa msick alafu akaambia mdosi wake that I took some drug. Mdosi anaangalia zile za okay, so yeah, but it's interesting because pia ukiangalia hata majuu inakuwaga FDA ni foods and drugs, so I don't know, but somehow people use medicine. But yes, so in this situation ni medicine.
And I was very concerned. He explained to me that he had gone to Dubai and he had gone to the American hospital and they had told him a few things about his health. And then he came back and went back and went to Canadian hospital again in Dubai. And after he came back, his doctors, led by Dr. Olunya, who is his personal doctor for many years, administered some medicines to him. And when I went to New York for the United Nations General Assembly, I kept track with what he was doing. And I told him, I will come back, I will come through Dubai, I will also do a medical checkup, but when I come back, I want us to meet.
So kitu interesting ni I think even ukisikiza hii speech ya Ruto, you'll see even with that sickness, I think if Ruto is to be honest, no one expected Raila to die. And it's one of those where were there the rumors were there. Was he an over 80-year-old? There's this classic Chris Rock joke inasemaga like ukishafika over 70, anything that kills you inakuwaga natural causes. And it's such a funny joke, but it's also scary, especially for someone like me who's in their 40s and I know that I'm closer to 70 than I am to 10. Becomes interesting, like, you know what, I've reached the age where in like 20 years, 25 years, I'll have reached an age where if anything kills me, it's natural causes. It's not something that we can get into nini. So hapa Raila libonga juu ya vile how Ruto libonga juu ya how eventually they ended up settling on India. History ya India, I think I'll get a doctor. Kuna doctor tuko tunabonga na yeye who felt like there was chances of saving Raila, and him traveling to India was not the best course of action. Why? Considering his age and the condition and everything that he was fighting against within his body, that was not a good thing to do. But of course, Osamaga, hindsight is a motherfucker, so that's gone. And but another thing that Ruto alienda pakibonga juu yake ilikuwa juu ya how political pundits put it, and I also put this the same way. And I put it this way because nilikuwa nachisikia the bullshit rumors that Ruto ndiye alidedisha Raila. I found that to be stupid. It's one of those things where I'm like, I know you want to blame someone for something, but that was a bullshit argument. So what did Ruto say about people saying about him after Raila's death?
Nikienda ofisini asubuhi, I remember it was about 6:40 or 6:45 there. Nikaona kwa simu yangu Oburu ameniandikia WhatsApp message akaniambia my brother is critically ill. Nikampigia Oburu, nikamuuliza, I thought we spoke to Baba and he was feeling okay. Imetokea nini? Akaniambia amepata information. So nikachukua simu yangu, nikapigia yule ambaye alikuwa ameenda na yeye. Akaniambia Baba is okay. Yeye pia hakuwa anajua. Nikamwambia ebu check. Nikachukua simu yangu nikapigia mwingine, akaniambia pia hajasikia. In a few minutes, like 10 minutes, Oburu akanipigia tena. Akaniambia inaonekana Baba ametuacha.
So kuna hii part Ruto talks about now Raila's death, and yes, and the different like communications that wali have, and hii story inakuwaga confusing cause anasema waliongea 6. Okay, it makes sense cause anasema waliongea around 6 something cause Raila died Kenyan time I think ni 7:22 cause it was 9:52 in Kerala iko the same time zone as Mumbai, so ilikuwa 9:52. So yes, it makes sense if you remove 2.5 hours, 7:22, considering they started talking around 6 something with Oburu. So yes, okay, that actually makes sense. Tuendelee.
He was not conclusive. So that's a few minutes after 7. After 2 minutes, Winnie akanipigia. Kaniambia, first I told her, please Winnie, don't tell me any bad news. But of course she said, the bad news have happened. My father is no more. And those were very, very difficult moments. Many commentators in the newspapers and in the media say this is a very big blow for William Ruto. Yes, it is.
Yes, and I think place naenda kumalizia hii story. Yes, ilikuwa a big blow to Ruto cause vile tu alisema, I think ilikuwa kwa the book, if you look at what he wrote in the book, alisema that when he needed it, Raila libaki amestand by yeye, and this is the one part that has always been debated upon until I heard ile speech ya Kalonzo akisema that this guy was afraid that he was going to have to give the power to the military, and of course for the average Kenyan you go like, oh, that should have been the thing that was supposed to happen. But I'll always say no, let's make better decisions when it comes to voting so that we do not have to protest. We should not put protests, and we should not start glorifying protest and glorifying removing presidents in the middle of their terms. That's something that personally, if it's going to have to lead to military rule, I'd never support that. Can I support it if maybe the Kenyan constitution had said mtu akitoka leo no military comes into Nini, it's maybe the speaker, then the speaker has to call the election in this amount of time, that one I'd support. But anything to do with the military, I'm not a child, and I think I know, I've seen the way Kenyans behave when they get guns. The fact that at Kasarani kwa funeral ya Raila there were like some armed people just shooting into the crowd shows you how we should never at any point support people who have guns to rule us. We need at least civilians. Let's be able to argue it out. So yes, it was a big blow to Ruto. Why? Because his chances at 2027 ended up shrinking with Raila's death, najua, and now he has to try to come up with ways to make himself popular before 2027. So he has to come up with that, and hopefully if he's not able to do that, hopefully he does not take us to what we went through in 2007. This thing that every president has to serve 10 years is bullshit. You can serve your 5 years and go home. And this thing of us sanitizing history and saying bullshit like we do not know who won in 2007, it's bullshit. We know who won. We are not allowed to say it because somehow it's going to hurt a few feelings. No, Kibaki rigged the election and people ended up dying for it. Hopefully Ruto does not do the same. If he loses, Ruto, please, if he lose, enter to home. Let's not go through that bullshit. No one has a right to run a country for 10 years. And even if you're the best president, you have to always be ready to step aside and be like, you know what, I am the best, but these people don't feel like I'm the best. So let me step aside. They've decided to go the other way. Let them make their mistakes. And next, if we end up making our mistake in 2027, because I don't know who's going to run against Ruto, and I don't know if the person who's going to run against Ruto is actually better than Ruto. But if we make that mistake, we have to realize that Historia, because it happened in Bangladesh, we need to do it. And because it happened in Sri Lanka, we need to do it. It's bullshit. We have very different circumstances with them. They have something that unites them. You'll find maybe it's religion or something. We have a lot of things that divide us, especially tribe. So the Kenyan equation would be very different. Tribal violence would be guaranteed if we were to ever make a president step down, it would be ugly. We don't need to get there. What we need to do is make better decisions at the ballot. That's number one. Alafu number two, we need to start supporting politics of ideas and not bullshit. And the bullshit ran for a very long time. Najua, the bullshit ran for a very long time. And with the bullshit, it used to be this person supports violence, this person supports poverty, this person's Raila Odinga alisema something very interesting, which was it's high time that Kenyan leaders fought for the nation's wealth and not personal wealth. And I think for a very long time Raila was described as a social democrat. Social democrat is what you have in Europe, where you try to spread the wealth, and the wealth should never be in the hands of a few, and you try to make as many things accessible as possible. And yeah, so I'll keep saying this, man, let's not make bad decisions in 2027 and then start calling people cowards for not wanting the military to take over. That's a sword personally mimi niko ready to die on, and the sword is I'll always choose Samoei over the military. I'll choose even Matiang'i over the military. These are people that I don't like. Najua Matiang'i, I think to me would be even worse than Ruto if it comes to police killings and police violence, because I've seen him as a CS, and as a CS he was worse than Murkomen, and Murkomen has been a piece of shit. I think I'm still allowed to say that Cyber Crimes Act ishatokea. So when we make that decision in 2027, let's make the decision and let's be ready to live with that decision till 2032. Why? Because I think as Nani said, as Jimani said, we don't have anyone to blame. Najua, in 2024 we had this one guy, we were like, oh, without this one guy, of course Ruto angetoka and Kenya would be paradise. Now we don't have anyone to blame. So who are we going to blame if we make bad decisions in 2027? So let's make better decisions. And how do we start making better decisions? Number one is go and get that Nini kadi ya kuvote. Like wengi wenyu bado hamjachukua kadi, mnafikiria screaming Ruto must go online is enough. No, that's not enough. And then after you get that card, make sure in 2027 you use your head, not your emotions. And if you use your emotions to vote and things end up badly, don't expect people to join you in the streets and have a death wish. Yeah, let's occupy State House, let's occupy. No, that won't happen. The only thing we're supposed to be occupying is the polling station. And endo get your kura yako, love to back it mejuaji. I guess this is our opportunity to right these wrongs. Ekonene.